Hello and welcome to Cinema Wellman. I am your host David, and today we're going to break down our recent 63 and 63 project by giving you a top 10 and bottom 5 of those 63 chronological screenings. Dakota brought the project to my attention several months ago, thinking it would be something I would absolutely enjoy, and she was absolutely right. The goal of the project is to watch one film from each year that you've spent on the planet, and if you're a movie fan, I enthusiastically recommend you start making your list and lining up those movies today. I, of course, began by setting up a database with slots from 1962 to 2025, which is actually 64 years since I forgot you aren't 1 year old the day you were born, so I later removed the 1962 film from the entry list to please myself. Once that was all set, I started searching for films that I hadn't yet seen for each one of those years. Then I needed to figure out if they were available for me to even see. And you'd be surprised in this era of streaming at how many films just aren't readily available. Even more surprising was the fact that there were a handful of films I had locked in at the start of the project that were no longer available when it came their turn and their screening day. The 63 films, with the removal of 1962, broke down this way statistically. To use a soccer form, my record was 26, 28, and 9. That's 26 wins, movies given a thumbs up, 28 draws, movies that were just meh, and 9 losses, movies that were given the dreaded bomb. So that breakdown really isn't that bad at all. I've already put into place another version of this project for the future in which I don't watch new movies for each year, but my favorite movies for each year. To no one's surprise, that database has already been built. We will begin where we usually do, and that's at the bottom. And there's a surprise right out of the chute, since this movie was directed by a favorite director of mine. From 2003, it's The Hunted, 94 minutes, IMDb says 6.1. Directed by William Friedkin, The French Connection, To Live and Die in L.A., Sorcerer, The Exorcist, and The Hunted? Come on, Billy Friedkin, you're better than this. Tommy Lee Jones was reportedly paid $20 million for this movie, which seems like a reboot of The Fugitive for most of its runtime. Jones really doesn't do much acting at all for his $20 million. There's a lot of sniffing dirt and looking around in the woods. That's great work if you can get it. And why were so many of the characters named after famous rock stars? Bonham, Kravitz, Van Zandt, Xander, Richards. Why? That's just dumb and noticeable. The best thing about this movie was that it was only 94 minutes long. Next, from 2005, House of Wax, 113 minutes, IMDb 5.5, directed by Jamie Collett Serra. If you're a regular here at Cinema Wellman, you know how I like to go on and on about casts and films, and it's almost always in order to praise them. Not today. Alicia Kimbauer Cuthbert, Chad Michael One Tree Hill Murray, and Paris Hilton Hotels Hilton. Yikes. And why was this almost 2 hours long? Stories involving boring stereotypes we've seen 1,000 times before shouldn't take 2 hours to tell. I'm a big fan of the original Wax film, 1953's House of Wax, starring friend of Cinema Wellman, Vincent Price. And I was going to say that this version doesn't hold a candle to the original, but I won't. Number 3, from Italy, 1980, Cannibal Holocaust, unrated, 95 minutes, IMDb 5.8, directed by Ruggero Deodato. IMDb, an anthropologist ventures into the Amazon rainforest on a rescue mission when he recovers footage shot by a film crew documenting their disastrous encounters with local cannibal tribes. I should know better. I have a poor track record with cannibal films, especially Italian cannibal films, and I despise found footage films, but I decided to watch this anyway. Even though it did make the bottom 5, there is one tidbit about this film that I absolutely love. A week after the film's 1980 release, director Ruggero Deodato was arrested and charged with obscenity. He was later charged with murdering several actors on camera and faced life in prison. How authorities thought this footage was an actual snuff film is hysterical. And the reason Deodato was facing murder charges is because he paid the cast extra to disappear for a year after the movie was done to make it seem like they were dead. And the authorities couldn't find the actors and charged Deodato with murder. The charges were dropped when the living actors came forward. Fun fact, Cannibal Holocaust was the second highest grossing film of 1983 in Japan, behind E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Put those two on a double feature. I dare you. Next, from 1968, Candy. Rated R, 115 minutes, IMDb 5.1, directed by Christian Marquand. IMDb says, Candy Christian, an innocent high schooler, encounters numerous colorful characters and humorous sexual situations while attempting to find meaning in life. Late 60s sex farces were plentiful, but I'm sure social diseases were as well, and you really don't want anything to do with either. Marlon Brando, never liked him. Richard Burton, overrated. James Coburn, love you. John Huston, Walter Matthau, thank you. John Aston and Ringo Starr are among those numerous colorful characters, and they really aren't colorful at all. Mostly they're just creepy old dudes. And do you really want your sexual situations to be humorous? I mean, maybe once in a while something funny happens, but one to go. And it is the worst of the 63 and 63 project, and it's time to apologize to Andrew once again. Number one, Puffin Stuff from 1970, rated G. Why you would put children through this, I don't know. 98 minutes, IMDb 6.5, What Are You Smoking? Directed by Hollingsworth Morse. That's not a real name. If you tuned into our best and worst of the third quarter episode, you've already heard me apologize to Andrew for not screening Colossus, the Forbin project with him and choosing this mess instead. Puffin Stuff was so bad, I'm here to apologize again. Sorry, Andrew. I promise to do better next time you visit Cinema Wellman. I guess I was bitten by the nostalgia bug with my oldest friend visiting and a movie based on a show that I absolutely adored as a kid. A movie that had somehow eluded me for 55 years. I wish it had remained elusive, since it seems like everything I loved about the show annoyed me in this movie. I guess there was really no reason for this to be made, or for me to screen it for a visitor. Dakota keeps telling me I need a sign here that says something to the effect of, Cinema Wellman is not responsible for the films you may be subjected to screening while visiting. I like that. Now on to the top 10 of our 63 and 63 project. Number 10 from 1987, Dolls, rated R, 77 minutes, IMDb 6.3, directed by Stuart Gordon. IMDb, a dysfunctional family of three stops by a mansion during a storm. Father, stepmother, child. The child discovers that the elderly owners are magical toy makers and have a haunted collection of dolls. I am not a fan of dolls, especially puppets and marionettes, pure evil on strings. But I am a fan of stop-motion animation and practical effects, so these dolls were totally welcome in Cinema Wellman, much like Courtney's Abigail. The dysfunctional family was comical and super stereotypical, especially the stepmother, but the dolls are the real stars here. What could make porcelain dolls creepier? How about ceramic porcelain dolls with skeletons under the porcelain? Yeah. Number 9, from 1978 and Japan, Empire of Passion, rated R, 105 minutes, IMDb 7.0, directed by Nagisa Oshima. IMDb, a married woman and her lover murder her husband and drop his body into a well, but his ghost returns to haunt them as the local gossip intensifies. Japanese cinema is phenomenal, and Japanese filmmakers have mastered all genres, but one of their specialties, in my opinion, is the horror story, especially the ghost story. Kwaidan, Ujetsu, Ringu, Ju-on, The Grudge, and Houseu are all excellent Japanese ghost story films, and I'd add Empire of Passion to a slightly lower tier under those films. My favorite part of this story is how the townspeople all know what's going on, and they're nonchalant about the murderous couple being haunted by the man they killed. That's just how things go in these sorts of situations. You kind of get what you deserve. And the people were like, oh, that's the couple. They killed the husband, right? Yeah, they're being haunted by his husband, by the husband, right? Okay, yeah. Next. Okay, next. From the UK and 2009, it's Fish Tank. Not rated, 123 minutes, IMDb 7.3, directed by Andrea Arnold. IMDb. Everything changes for 15-year-old Mia when her mom brings home a new boyfriend. This film made it onto my radar screen when Larry electronically shared a New York Times article about the 100 best movies of the 21st century, and then Lucas's father, Steve, passed along the paper copy to me as well. Gotta love being known as a person who loves a list. Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Steve. And actually, that's the next episode. I teased it right there. Films about young girls' awakenings are nothing new, but when they're as raw and honest as Fish Tank is, it helps to reinvent the genre. I'm thinking it's also why it ended up on the New York Times list. One of the reasons it seemed raw to me is that Mia was played by an actress who had never acted before. Director Arnold spotted Katie Jarvis and her boyfriend arguing in public and offered her the part. Adding to the freshness of the performances was the fact that the film was shot in chronological order and the cast was only given the script 1 week in advance. The cast did not know what was coming for their characters. Kind of like life. Next, at number 7, from the Netherlands in 1988, Amsterdam. Rated R, 114 minutes, IMDb 6.6, directed by Dick Maas. IMDb says a hard-boiled police detective sets out to capture a gruesome serial killer terrorizing the canals of Amsterdam. Shot on location in the canals and waterways of Amsterdam, Amsterdammed is an entertaining action slasher horror thriller hybrid that actually succeeds as all of those genres. There is a thrilling speedboat chase through the canals of the city in this film that rivals any boating chase sequences that I've ever seen. Amsterdam, I enjoyed this movie. That's a good one. Thank you, Chet. Next, at number 6 is Run from 2020, PG-13, 90 minutes, IMDb 6.7, directed by Anish Shaganti. IMDb, Chloe, a teenager who is confined to a wheelchair, is homeschooled by her mother, Diane. Chloe soon becomes suspicious of her mother and begins to suspect that she may be harboring a dark secret. Chloe is played by actress Kira Allen, who also uses a wheelchair in real life, so kudos to the filmmakers for this casting, and Miss Allen does an excellent job. Chloe's mother is played by the phenomenal Sarah Paulson, who really tends to elevate everything she's part of. Run was a taut psychological thriller with a couple of excellent twists, one of which I was close to figuring out and one that I did not see coming at all. And I love those surprise twists in thrillers, and it's why it's my favorite genre. Next at number 5, coming to us from France in 2015, April and the Extraordinary World. PG, 105 minutes, IMDb 7.2, directed by Christian Demar and Frank Acchini. IMDb, it's 1941, but France is trapped in the 19th century, governed by steam and Napoleon V, where scientists vanish mysteriously. April, a teenage girl, goes in search of her missing scientist parents. I was mesmerized by this alternate history look at World War II France stuck in the 19th century, albeit a 19th century with sinister totalitarian undertones. I've always enjoyed stories like this and Philip K. Dick's The Man in the High Castle because I think it's fun to imagine what things would be like, if. I love this steampunk Paris complete with dual Eiffel Towers, airships, tons of steam, and gears. Next at number 4, from 2008, Schenectady, New York. Rated R, 124 minutes, IMDb 7.5, directed by Charlie Kaufman. IMDb tries to explain it. A theater director struggles with his work and the women in his life as he creates a life-size replica of New York City inside a warehouse as part of his new play. I may not know how to pronounce the title. It's Synecdoche, but this film is both unforgettable and extremely difficult to describe. It's dreamlike and nightmarish at the same time, and it involves huge spaces, but it's also claustrophobic, and you can never really trust what you're looking at. Remember that in the IMDb synopsis, there's a mention of a theater director creating a life-size replica of New York City in a warehouse. Think of that for a minute. And that is accurate to the film. The theater director is played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. So this film has that extra magic that only he can bring to a production. I miss him so much. Next at number 3 from 2012, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Rated PG-13, 103 minutes, IMDb 7.9. Directed by Steven Chbosky. IMDb says Charlie, a 15-year-old introvert, enters high school and is nervous about his new life. When he befriends 2 seniors, he learns to cope with his friend's suicide and his tumultuous past. When I told people that I was going to screen this, I was met by a barrage of, "You've never seen that?" A bunch of them comments, while others proclaimed, "Oh, I just love that movie." Another example of really enjoying a movie while not being in the intended demographic at all. The filmmakers, the people that put together The Perks of Being a Wallflower in 2012 were not worried about old white dudes liking this movie, and that's why it's fantastic. And never be afraid to reach when it comes to movies and your initial perceptions of who that film's intended for. Just go for it. Next, at number 2 from South Korea, 2010, I Saw the Devil. Not rated, 144 minutes. IMDb says 7.8, directed by Kim Ji-woon. IMDb says a secret agent exacts revenge on a serial killer through a series of captures and releases. No, this is not catch and release, the rom-com. This was an example of a movie that stayed with me for days, and I always love movies that have that power over me. I wanted to see this so badly once I read about it that I purchased the DVD for this project. I couldn't find it anymore. Instead of giving you my 2 cents, I'm going to give you the 8th grade book report version by reading you the back of the DVD, since I certainly could not do any better than this. Here it is. I Saw the Devil is a shockingly violent and stunningly accomplished tale of murder and revenge, the embodiment of pure evil. Kyung-chul is a dangerous psychopath who kills for pleasure. On a freezing, snowy night, his latest victim is the daughter of a retired police chief and pregnant fiancée of an elite special agent. Obsessed with revenge, the agent is determined to track down the murderer, even if doing so means becoming a monster himself. And when he finds Kyung-chul, turning him into the authorities is the last thing on his mind as the lines between good and evil fall away in this diabolically twisted game of cat and mouse. Well done, DVD package writers. Well done. This film it's so wild and it's twisted from start to finish. Which brings us to number 1. Or shall I say it's a co-number 1. So I cheated. Speaking of wild and twisted, we actually have at number 1 a Lars von Trier doubleheader. Melancholia from 2011, rated R, 135 minutes, IMDb 7.1. IMDb says 2 sisters find their already strained relationship challenged as a mysterious new planet threatens to collide with Earth. And Dancer in the Dark from 2000, R, 135 minutes, IMDb 7.9. And they say an Eastern European U.S. immigrant with a love for musicals has to cope with the gradual loss of her vision. If you are familiar with director Lars von Trier's films such as Breaking the Waves and Dogville, you'll understand why Larry texted me and asked if a wellness visit was needed after he saw that I screened both of these films. Once again, these are movies that stayed with me for days, and in the case of Dancer in the Dark, haunted me for days. Movies about the end of the world are one thing. Movies about the end of the world in the hands of Lars von Trier are another thing altogether. I cannot stress enough how I really, really, really do not want to be around if we ever run into one of those, end of the days scenarios. But it sure is wild thinking about it and how things would really go down. I have a pretty good guess since people come close to cannibalism after the power's out for more than 8 hours, but you never know. A fun, odd fact about Melancholia: director Lars von Trier, star Kirsten Dunst, and the host of Cinema Wellman were all born on April 30th. And only Lars von Trier would combine the story of family strife and sisters in turmoil on one of their wedding days with the end of the entire world. Speaking of the end of the entire world, I thought my entire world was ending when I watched Dancer in the Dark. Björk, the singer, she's wonderful. She is stunning. As a young mother losing her eyesight, her young son is the same condition, and I really have no idea how she was not nominated for an Academy Award for this performance. This story was gut-wrenching, frustrating, and torturous. I found myself shouting no through sobbing tears at the end of this movie, and yet it's here at the top of this list of 63 and 63. Amazing. You can tell it still affects me, this movie. Well, that is a wrap from here at Cinema Wellman, as we recapped yet another of our seemingly endless projects. We keep planning them and we keep enjoying them. We hope you'll join us next time when we weigh in on the New York Times list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century. I mentioned that list earlier in this episode, and since I've now seen all of them, I have some issues. Isn't that the truth? Until then, take care.